2-0 here in the first. You heard it from Joe Buck, the World Series. A first-inning two-run shot from Chase Utley put the Philadelphia Phillies on the board first, which thus meaning that it gave the Phillies a huge boost of momentum. You take a look at the Rays, having just beat the Red Sox in the ALCS. The Phillies, with a bit of rust, having not played in a week. Well, guess what? They got off to the hot start against the Rays. They then applied a third run. The Rays were just able to get two for a 3-2 final. Lidge did save it. We'll have a listen at that later. But how about these Rays that have had such a terrific season, that have just conquered the AL East? You know, my mom was telling me, well, because my mom's a Red Sox fan, I'm a Red Sox fan, she was like, ooh, these Rays this year, and I kept on telling her, you know what, after the All-Star game, they're going to go down. This team, they don't have enough to make it to the World Series. And I was completely wrong. And then I said the same thing for September. This team is not going to be able to they're not going to be able to stand the pressure. Guess what? They did against the White Sox in the ALDS. They did against the Red Sox, having been ahead 3-1, 7-0 back in Game 4. They gave up that lead. They stayed in the series, won Game 7, and they've now lost the World Series, the first World Series game. But I think this team has so much to show. We saw a not bad performance from Kazmi, although 3 runs, one of them a home run. So, I think there are some questions to ask about the Rays, but I think there is yet so much left with B.J. Upton, with Evan Longoria. Once those guys get comfortable in this World Series, they're going to display their talent. You guys' thoughts?
Yeah, of course, but the thing is that we can't say now that the Devil Rays have lost the World Series. There has only been one game being played, of course, and you never know. They can win the 4 next game and winning the World Series. It's not necessarily the best team winning the World Series in baseball, but of course the hottest, as Jeter said it.
Jeter quote right there. How about Upton's throw home last night? A defining moment. Take a look, or take a listen, I should say.
And he flares one into left center field. Lead runner is Victorino. Upton will come up throwing. Here's a play at the plate. Inning over.
You hear the excitement in that game right there. A great throw from B.J. Upton, who continues to flash the leather in baseball. And I think when you see that from the Rays, you see that this team, despite having lost Game 1, they still have what it takes to be a good defensive ball club. They have the great pitching that we saw in the ALCS, and then they have that offense that'll surprise you. So the Rays, as I said, I think they still have a lot to prove in this World Series. We'll see how
everything.
they do.
They have everything that you require for a team to win the World Series.
Absolutely.
Pitching, offense,
and defense.
Everything.
Great stuff. Now let's take a look at the Phillies side. Brad Lidge, who picked up 47th straight save. Let's take a listen again.
Down the left field line in foul territory, and the Phillies take Game 1. Pedro Feliz backpedaling to squeeze it, and it's a 3-2 final.
3-2 final indeed. The Phillies winning thanks to Brad Lidge. Scott, have you been following Brad Lidge at all?
I'm not actually up there with my baseball right now. I follow a little bit, but I've just saw Tampa getting into the final. I've heard the comments about the situation and the fact that you were telling me earlier about someone putting a bet, saying that they put a bet on for that Tampa and Pittsburgh would never be in the final, and now one of those teams are there.
Yeah, that's one thing I'll come back on in a short while. Let's just move on to Brad Lidge just before that. Brad Lidge back in 2005, I believe, terrific is what I meant, closer for the Houston Astros, and he was doing the job, every time. He's been acquired by the Phillies this season. The Houston Astros, who have just not been doing well this season, lose a hot prospect. He's now with the Phillies, and he gets his 47th consecutive save, including one for Game 1 of the World Series. Now, coming back to Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh, that conversation we were having earlier, the guy on my right here, William, he has been joking around with me for a long time saying, what if this World Series we have the Tampa Bay Devil Rays and the Pittsburgh Pirates? And I would always burst out laughing, saying, Pittsburgh Pirates and Tampa Bay were the worst 2 major league teams in baseball. Yeah. And we were always joking about these 2 teams making the World Series as saying the most boring World Series ever. Well, guess what? The Tampa Bay Devil Rays, worst team in the American League last year, have become the best team in the American League, perhaps the best team in baseball this year.
That's the result of 11 hard work.
Yeah, I mean it's been hard work all season, but you feel at the same time that there's the pressure mounting right now to the Rays. They're in the World Series. It's an even bigger stage.
No, I disagree with you.
What?
I think that the Phillies have the pressure because the Phillies have always lost their World Series against the AL East since there's against the Royals, against the White Sox, against also the Boston Red Sox, and they haven't won a single World Series since 1983.
Okay.
So they're having the pressure. It's the first time for the Devil Rays, so I believe that Devil Rays have just nothing to lose this season because they already proved to us that they are a regularly team, and that is terrific.
Well, I think that's a very valid point you make there, but at the same time, this team remains unexperienced in the World Series, and just by what I'm about to play now, have a listen, you'll see the unexperience that not pays off, but that makes them pay the price.
Hard hit, Feliz, Utley, double play. And now the Rays have missed a golden opportunity.
The fact that they are getting golden opportunities, I think, is a big sign, but they did miss those opportunities.
Yes.
That is a sign of struggle for the Devil Rays at this time.
And especially in the World Series, I agree with you. But still, you never know. There has only been one single game been played. There are 6 left.
That's
Left in
true.
time.
There could be 6 left. Hey, if you want to join us in the discussion, why don't you give us a call? The number is 029-20781-530. You can text us, which will give you the privilege of us not having to hear your struggling voice as you're nervous. No, I'm just kidding. 077-222-63888. Thanks for listening. This is the American Sports Show here on Express.
65 minutes of hockey.
Briere to make the move before he wanted to.
How fitting this would be that Jeremy Roenick returns to Philadelphia. He can win the game here. And he does! And the Sharks win here in Philadelphia in a shootout. And Jeremy Roenick with the punctuation mark.
You're listening to the American Sports Show here on Express Radio. It is 6:33. We have just gone through half of our show, but not nearly half of our news. NHL with Scott. Let's hear the latest updates.
Of course, that little sound clip you just heard was from the San Jose Sharks against the Philly Flyers this weekend. It went all the way to 6-6 and then had to come to
It was
shootout.
amazing. It was just back and
incredible.
forth.
It was incredible back and forth hockey. My actual star man in the match, though, was, no surprise, Patrick Marleau, who actually got the first star himself. He scored 2 goals, had an assist, and was just a dominating force in front of the goal. Yeah. But back to some NHL news now. So in the KHL, which is the Russian Federation, last week we've actually had a bit of a down point. Sharapov, who is one of the first round picks for the New York Rangers.
Yep.
He actually died on the bench, 19 years old, died of a chronic ischemia. Now that is when there's low blood going into both your heart and your other organs.
Okay.
EMT could not reach in time, which has led to some legislation being laid out by the KHL Federation themselves.
Right.
And what they have done is they have insisted now that teams must ensure doctors be at every league game.
Oh,
now
I
this is
hope
to
so,
tend
yeah.
to every player and to every spectator as well. Now, you might wonder what this got to do with American sports. It's going to have a big effect on NHL. What with
Absolutely.
so many Eastern European players coming out of the KHL and coming in through the NHL ranks.
Absolutely.
Now, one of the things that they have decided that maybe they may be looking at is an electronic medical passport. What this will contain is a recent medical examination, a pre-match medical examination before travel, and then one at the actual scene. What they'll be able to do with this is use the chip, much like a British ID card system,
Right.
and be able to assess whether a player needs a medical attention, should be put on a list where a short list of, like, for hospitals around the area,
Right.
and whether they should play or not.
And this player who died in Eastern Europe, was he already suffering from these kinds of issues in the past? Or?
It's unfortunate. It's very much like the situation at Seville last year, where the young player died on the sidelines in the football game. It was just a sudden attack. there was no signs of any physical trauma or anything, but they've said with a more intense medical examination they could have actually picked this up.
Okay, well, this is just not the kind of thing you like to hear about great athletes, great potential heroes for even the NHL.